It's incredibly moving, isn't it? It's expected to cost, though, £20,000. And each time you go to the studio to have a conversation with your deceased loved one, that would cost another £1,000. Well, joining us now to discuss this, Apprentice aide and businessman Tim Campbell. Now, Tim Campbell has his own company which helps people store memories of loved ones after they pass away. And he thinks that this is an excellent idea.
We also have grief counsellor Dipti Tate, who says, this is deeply unethical. In fact, it's grotesque. I'll come to you in a second. We want to be quite clear about this. This Korean system is just not a video that plays out blankly. With 7 hours of material to work with and artificial intelligence to manipulate it, it's a proper appears to be a proper conversation. As I was saying earlier, I could say to my dear departed mother, "Hi, Mum, it's me, Richard." And she said, "Hello, Richard. How are you?" "Oh, I'm all right. Tell me about the time you met Dad." "Oh, that one. OK, well, as you know." It's kind of like that, isn't it?
I think it's a great development for individuals who are learning to deal with the loss of somebody, how they can get used to that missing part. So sometimes you need a bridge to be built. Listen, in my day-to-day roles, I work with massive companies through the Zishi.com selling artificial intelligence. But I've also invested in this business, which actually helps people manage that grief process by allowing them to interact with a version of a relative, helping them to ease into that stage.
You've invested in this business?
Correct, Eternal.
What, but the re-memory business?
No, not the re-memory. My own business.
Your own business.
I'm an investor in that company. Very, very clear. And if I could get £10,000 for people to come along, that'd be much interesting.
And tell me what effect that has on those left behind. What does it do for them or to them when they're interacting with the person who's maybe been dead for a year?
I think what you have to be really clear about is that people deal with grief in very different ways. Now, you might have a teddy bear of somebody that you've lost. You might have a garment that reminds you of them. And that makes it easier for you to ease into that stage when they're no longer there. I think whatever helps people to manage grief is a positive.
Yeah, so the business manager for this particular company, he says, this would be best suited for people with terminal illnesses, such as cancer, who could spend several hours in front of a camera to allow the software to learn the mannerisms and collect voice data. They would have a lot of memories, stuff about their lives. And then, you know, they know that they're going to pass, and the person left behind can then have what they feel like is a conversation and a connection with them. What do you think is wrong with that?
Yeah, when I saw this technology, my first reaction was, I'm actually terrified.
Really?
And my second reaction was about the ethics of it. So
why terrified?
Well, because I've worked with grieving clients for about 20 years now, so I see them at their very lowest. These are emotionally vulnerable people. And these people are so delicate and, you know, so desperate, really. And so what we want to do with grieving patients and clients is to help them move into acceptance. And this is blurring the boundaries between reality and deep fake.
Well, it's doing the opposite, actually, isn't it, if you think about it? Because the grief process, the human grieving process, is our way of processing the absence of the person that's died and coming to terms with it, as you say. And in other words, saying goodbye to them. This system allows you to perpetually say hello to them.
Yes. But you can't lie next to them in bed. You can't go out to dinner with them. If my partner died and I was having an expensive Zoom chat with him, that would not cut it.
But I wonder whether it might also interrupt the process of healing.
It will completely interrupt the process.
Part of the worst part of grief is that at some point you have to accept that someone is gone. And this would perhaps keep rubbing off the scab of that wound.
It's totally rubbing off the scab, and then it is rubbing salt into the wound as well, and it's going to actually damage that person's ability to move forward and move on. And that's terrifying.
I've been trying to think, as I said earlier, I've lost both my parents, and I've been trying to think how I would have felt at the time if this had been available to me, or your system had been available to me. And I think at the time I would have grabbed it and clung to it tightly. But now, all these years later, I think that would have been wrong. Now, if you were to offer me that, somehow magically magic up that system, I'd hate it. I'd absolutely hate it. They're gone.
And I think you're right. I think people have to be in the right state of mind. But I think there's a positive angle to being able to remember positive moments of when they were here.
Yeah.
Now, you might have pictures, you might have videos, you might want to tell your children about their grandparents and actually bring that to life for them. So I think, aside from the cost, there is a positive aspect where you can interact with people that are no longer here.
Now the genie is out of the bottle with this AI. Is it possible to put it back in? No. I do wonder whether in decades this will just be normal for all of us. We'll all have recorded something like
Correct.
this.
I think we have to lean into this because actually the technology's here.
It's going to happen anyway.
Put the ethics aside and make sure that people are doing the right thing for the right people at the right moment in their grieving process.
Well, currently, on Twitter, a poll done there, 89% of people are kind of with you, and they would not want to do it. But then I guess you might say that, you know, when the first transatlantic flight started, most people said, oh, no, I'm not getting in a plane and flying the Atlantic. And now we do it. And anyway, it costs £30,000, the equivalent of, and now you can do it for $30.
Tim and Dibsy, thank you both so much. It's absolutely fascinating issue. 7:36. Right. Let's have a